Okay, good afternoon, Black Belts. It's Thursday, another weekly session with our Black Belts. So today I have two mathematicians with me talking about teaching mathematics effectively. How can we dismiss this phobia of mathematics? Why have a lot of us grown up thinking that mathematics is hard and find it so difficult? Yet, like I was saying, in our everyday life, it's the most common subject that I see around me in everything I do. You know, whether you're in the market, you're trying to add up your shopping, you're trying to budget for the month, you look around you, you see different patterns and shapes and sizes, and we need mathematicians in our society. We know that it's a very important subject. How can we teach it effectively? Our first host is one of our black belts, Mr. Ishmael Ogbeche. He's a teacher in Port Harcourt. He has a YouTube channel where he teaches mathematics. And then our second host is Mr. Miracle, Daniel Gavor. He's an innovation and impact catalyst, a program design and leadership and training, leadership and instructional technologies, currently doing his PhD at University College London. He has also taught in Ghana. He's an EdTech specialist, and he studied Master of Arts in Technology and Learning from University of Roehampton. So you're welcome, Ishmael, and you're welcome, Mr. Miracle Gavor. So let me start with Mr. Miracle and ask you, why do we hate mathematics or fear mathematics? Why?
Thank you, Fatima, for the question and the opportunity to share first light on why we have fear of math. The fear of math is caused by a variety of factors. Chief amongst them, the first one is a lack of confidence, a bad experience with math in the past, and then a difficulty in understanding the mathematical concepts. So these are the three things I would first state: that confidence, experience, and then lack of understanding with the concepts. To begin with, there's also a contributing factor to the lack of understanding that we experience with math, particularly for those of us from the African continent. We were introduced to the subject in a language we did not understand. So that then begins the misunderstanding of the math concepts begin with. I'm sure most of us, the first time we heard the word mathematics was when we went into formal school. And if in formal school, our language, the language of the playground or the language we speak at home was the medium to which we get introduced to the subject, then we could have had conversations, and through those conversations, establish understanding around the mathematical concepts. So those are the some of the issues that, and contributing to that is also the fact that I'll give you a classical example. So, for example, in Ghana, since 1974 to the year 2007, over 30 years, there wasn't the topic of geometry taught in Ghana. Anybody who attended secondary school within that period didn't do anything on geometry. Now, what does that mean? If I'd gone to school during that year period, and then I become a teacher, and all of a sudden I have to teach a concept of geometry, how am I going to teach it? I didn't learn it myself. And then there wasn't any opportunity to learn it outside of the school curriculum due to what we call the diploma disease. A lot of us, once we get our certificate, we stop learning. We just want to work and then earn a living. So learning also doesn't continue with the lot of work we're doing. So those are actually the experiences that we come from a system where preparation was itself not enough. And then over the period, the fear of we the teachers is what we transfer to the students. oh, math is difficult. You can't do math when you can't do ABCD. So that experience, bad experience, also contributes to the fear among students when it comes to the subject of mathematics. Fatima, you're on mute.
Thank you. I didn't realize. Sorry. Thank you very much, Miracle. So you've given us some of the reasons why there is this phobia of math. But I'm sure that Mr. Ishmael Ogbeche, you have devised ways of making mathematics more understandable. Can you share some of your teaching experience and expertise with us on how, as teachers, we can help dispel some of these myths and fears about mathematics? Ishmael.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Madam Fatima. Let me on my video. Okay. So I want to thank Mr. Miracle for the point he gave concerning the causes of maths phobia. But I just want to add maybe 2 or more on the causes of maths phobia as well. Now, I also discovered that when students, when they hate a particular maths teacher, they automatically hate the subject as well. And this boils down to the attitude of the teacher as he comes into the classroom. Sometimes there are some of the times that we neglect some of all these things when we as math teachers, we come into the class with our faces looking haggard as if we have, we have just fought with somebody and want to transfer the aggression to the class, and we are teaching kids or children who, who can see, who can perceive and see, the write-up in your face, and it will not affect the way they respond to you. And if you don't manage yourself, you will discover that you will see yourself screaming and transferring the aggression that you came with into the classroom. So when students see all these things, they begin to have hatred for you as a person, as a teacher, and at the same time having hatred for the course as well. So every math teacher should always try as much as possible to come into the classroom, with liveliness, with happy face, with love in their heart, with the intention to impact, the students that is before them. Okay, and Mr. Miracle has also talked about lack of understanding of the concept. I think that is one of the major causes. Okay, when students don't understand the concept, it's very, very difficult for them to move along with maths. Okay, now I also want to talk about the mindset of students. Sometimes these students, they have received negative, let's say, they have heard negative voices, either from their friends, from their colleagues, or from their peers, or from people that are higher, telling them that, oh, that maths is difficult, that maths is hard, that maths is no-go area. So when they have all these, when they internalize all these voices into them, it begins to affect them. And it begins to affect the way they see examination and testing. Now, another term that we can also use for maths phobia is maths anxiety. Okay, they begin to develop this anxiety towards maths examination and so on and so forth. So these are just the things I'm going to add up to what Mr. Miracle have said. Okay, then we also have the aspect of misconception. That's part of that. So now, how do we remedy this situation? How do we, what kind of technique can we use, to make sure that these students who are having math phobia, they can actually catch up as teachers? So that is what we are looking to at this moment. Now, just as we have looked at some of the causes, from that causes, we'll be able to actually get a solution to that. because we know that if you're able to know the cause of a problem, then devising a solution for that problem becomes very easy. So that is what we are going to look at. And these are the two main things that we are going to look at in creating a technique that will be very, very useful in making students to improve in their mathematics and to do away with fear of mathematics. And the two concepts, and the two is the understanding of the concept and the instruction. Understanding of the concept by the teacher himself, understanding of the concept by the students. You know, these are two different things. The teacher himself should understand the concept, because there is no how you can give what you don't have. So you must understand the basic idea concerning the particular maths topic you want to teach, or the maths course you want to deliver. Understanding it fully, have a full grasp of it. And if you're able to do that, it will becomes very easy for you to translate it to the students. And for cases finding it difficult to understand, it is your understanding of that concept that will now make you to deliver that particular subject or course you are teaching in different dimensions. So understanding of the concept help you to deliver or to give instruction in various ways. But once you don't understand that instruction, once you don't understand the basic concept, you will discover that you are just stuck to just one way or one technique of teaching that particular maths problem. And that is why, as a teacher, you must understand the concept. Ms. Fatima, please try to help to admit some people. There are some persons at the waiting room. Just admit them for me. Thank you very much. So as a teacher, you must have to understand the concept very well. Now, the second one is instruction. How do you give back the instruction? How do you deliver? Now, into the technique now. First of all, you are going to try as much as possible to make mathematics fun. There is nothing that students like than fun. You know, once you make it fun, you grab their attention. You make them feel relaxed. You know, you make them feel at home. They become comfortable. But once you make it so, so complex, so difficult for them, they get bored and they begin to see it, and they'll begin to see it as something that they cannot really handle. So the first technique as an instructor or as a teacher of mathematics is for you to try as much as possible to sit down before you go to the classroom, sit down, plan, how am I going to make this class fun today? This is what I do for myself each time I go to the class. Either in the morning or before the day begins, I begin to, I've gone through my the courses and the topic I have for today. For the day, I begin to think of, okay, how am I going to deliver this class? How am I going to handle this? You plan yourself. You plan how to make each class fun, because the truth of the matter is that for each classes you go to teach, the audience are different. I don't know if I believe that there are so many math teachers here and they will understand what I'm talking about. I teach SS2 mathematics. So I have students in A class, B class, and C class. A class are the science students, B class are the commercial and the art students, and then the C class are the technical students. Now, out of these three classes, the ones that give me challenge are the commercial students and the art students. They give me lots of challenges. So the way I go to that class, the attitude I put on in that class is totally different from the attitude I put on when I go to A class and the other classes, because here I discovered that in that C class, I have people who are finding mathematics more challenging. So I try as much as possible not to be as fast as I used to be or as I am in A class. I try as much as possible to follow a very gradual and simple pace for them, because I know their level of understanding. And I try as much as possible to make them feel relaxed. Now, another thing again you are going to use as a math teacher is for you to understand that some of all the students, they have a particular mindset, and that mindset is fixed mindset. So as a teacher, one of the techniques you must use is not every time you just jump into the class and you begin to write on the board. No. Sometimes what I do, first of all, I try to motivate them, try to let them know that, oh, look, that this course is a very simple thing to do. I try as much as possible to tell them also areas in which it will help them. Now, let me just share a kind of brief story concerning this. Something you have to do as well as a teacher is that you try as much as possible to understand it helps, try to understand their personality, try to understand their lives, try to understand their ambition, what they want in life. It will help you a lot. Some years ago, there was a particular class I was teaching, and there is this particular student that is always running away from, when it has to do with maths, he's always running away from the class. He doesn't want to understand. He doesn't want to learn. He doesn't do assignments, no homework, nothing. So sometimes I just get tired of it. So one day I was just in the staff room and it was just during break time, and during break time, discovered that most of them, they just come to the back of the staff room and begin to gist among their friends. So I was just hearing his voice, they were just talking about their ambition. I just heard him, he said, on this one, when I do, me, myself, once I just finish this, my secondary school, I go join army, I want to be a sniper. I want to handle gun, all those Boko Haram people, I want to finish them. That was his. I heard his voice, so I just came out from the window. I picked was him. I said, okay. So I've gotten a clue of what this guy actually wants. So what I had to do was I had to go home and do my assignment. Can you guys hear me? I don't know if I'm. If you guys are hearing me.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
We can hear you. Okay, interesting. Please go on.
Yeah. So what I had to just do, the next topic I was to teach was on bearing. So I had to come to the class, and then I try as much as possible to introduce the class and the topic. And I told them, look, because one thing I do as a teacher is this: each time I introduce a topic, I try as much as possible to tell them the areas in which that topic is useful. I'll say, look, this particular topic is useful either in accounting or as an engineer. I try as much as possible to tell them the area in which that particular topic is useful so that it will arouse their interest. So when I was teaching this bearing, I said, okay, look, this topic we want to learn now is bearing. If you know you want to be an engineer, you see the topic, you must learn it. You must know it. If you know you want to be an architect, you see this bearing, you must know it. I was mentioning, and I said, look, if you want to be a soldier, if you don't want to get lost in the jungle, you see bearing, you must know bearing. In fact, especially for those of you who may want to be a sniper, by then he never knew that I have listened to his conversation. As a sniper, how will you target somebody when you don't know the bearing of that person? As was teaching, I was just trying to use my eye I discovered that this guy that is always distracted in the class, when he heard me talk about soldier and sniper, I discovered that, he just focused. And then after introducing the topic, I now began to give them the steps and then began to teach. And then what made me know that, look, that this guy actually internalized it was the next day, he came to me and he said, Uncle, please, is there any way that a sniper can actually position himself without reading the compass? I said, it's not possible. You must learn how to calculate the bearing very well. So that question he asked me made me know that, that this particular guy actually went home to reflect about what I have said. So what am I trying to talk about through this story is that as a teacher, you must plan yourself, know the students that you are teaching. I know sometimes we are faced with the challenges of, of no time, of large classroom, but there is always room for you to try as much as possible to meet one or two persons on their needs, especially those of them who are really lagging behind in the classroom. Good. So next again is you have to try as much as possible to be friendly with them. Try as much as possible. I've talked about this before when I talk about having fun. It's also talk about friendliness. Make friends with them. Make yourself accessible. When they see you as somebody who is so strict, who cannot be approached, there is no how they can come to you for problem, and this will make their situation to worsen. Now, again, another technique that you have to follow is that you have to make your instruction very systematic. Systematic in the sense that you are going to progress, from the simple to the complex, or also from the related topics. It's just like somebody who wants to learn logarithm, and you have not taught them about indices. It is not going to flow very well. So as a teacher, you have to plan yourself, and thank God for our curriculum. The curriculum have actually designed it in such a way that everything flows systematically. So, but when teachers are not taking the instruction they are given systematically, it affects students a lot, because you discover that the students will begin to encounter some topics which they have supposed to have learned, but they haven't learned it, and it begins to affect them. So as a teacher, please try as much as possible, as a math teacher especially, try as much as possible to make your teaching to be systematic in terms of topic, systematic in terms of procedures, systematic in terms of complexity of the particular topic that you are teaching. It helps a lot. Please, can you guys hear me? I don't know whether I'm too fast.
No, we can hear you.
No, we are enjoying you, please.
We can hear you. Go on. Thank you.
We can hear you.
Yeah. So you see, sometimes when people hear about the techniques of teaching maths, they think it's something that comes from the moon. No, it doesn't come from the moon at all. It's just very simple steps, simple topics. Simple procedures to follow, and you will discover that students will grab whatever you are teaching, and they won't see mathematics as a phobia for them. So one thing again you have to going to watch is you are going to watch your evaluation, your grading. It matters a lot. Most math teachers don't really know how to grade. They don't really know how to mark. They don't really know how to evaluate students, and it demoralizes students. Imagine after a particular test, all you to give a student is 0. Why? Because the student did not get the particular answer that you are looking for. That is a very big error. There is nothing that demoralizes a student than when you downgrade that student after the effort the students have put together, all the efforts, just because the person did not arrive at the final answer, you give the person 0. It tells the students that, look, in fact, I am very, very bad with maths. In fact, there is no how I can improve. That is the message you have passed across to the student. So as a math teacher, please, one of the techniques you must use is you must try as possible to mark the procedures, mark the steps of the students. It matters a lot. For example, for those of you who are in secondary school that teaches quadratic equation, maybe you want to test them on completing the square method. You don't have to go to the end and say, oh, the answer is supposed to be +2 and -1, and the person is getting -5 and -10. You are marking the person 0. No, you mark the steps. They are simple steps that they must follow. Check all the steps, mark those steps, and then give your mark. So watching your grading, watching your mode of assessment is very important. Once you are able to do this, the students will say, okay, yes, at least I tried. That student have confidence, oh, that he's able to do some things. You know, there are sometimes when I give assignment in the class and, you know, I'll just be watching my students and I'll just be seeing some of them. By the time they watch like this, you know, they feel happy that they have gotten something. But when after all these, their attempts, and at the end, they are seeing zero, you are killing their morale. Please, we got to watch that. So as a technique, please let us as much as possible to look at how we grade them. So let them also know that mathematics is hands-on. I always tell them, look, you don't read mathematics the way you read novel. You just hold your book and begin to look at your book. Okay, begin to nod your head. Okay, yes, no. Mathematics is not like that. Mathematics, you have to do something. You have to hold your pen. You have to calculate. And you have to do it consistently. You have to pass this message across to them. And one of the things I do is that I try as much as possible to give them lots of assignment, lots of classwork, you know, to make sure that they are doing something. And once they come in, once they pass the assignment, the classwork, you make sure you mark. Make sure you mark. Once you don't mark, you are really killing your strategy, because they feel, what the assignments have been doing, he has not been marking. So once they meet now, and then you are seeing them, they will not become carefree about any assignment you give them. So you give them lots of assignments and make sure you mark them. Now, for those of you who may be wondering, how will you mark when you have lots of students in the class? Now, let me show you my technique. What I do is that once I give them assignment, the next morning, I said, okay, it's time for us to mark our assignment. I tell them, okay, everybody exchange your work. They exchange their works, and then we do the correction, and then I give them the procedures on the board, and then I tell them, okay, you can mark. Now, one thing about this strategy is this. The strategy is that you are going to now see some of them coming to complain to you. Uncle, Emeka did his own this way, but he got the answer, but he did not solve it the way you solved yours on the board. I'll say, yes, let me see. Okay, this is how he did it. This is also another method of solving it. Fantastic boy. Emeka, I will just, clap. And then they know that, oh, there is also another strategy, of solving this particular math problem. Not only the one that the math teacher has given to them in the classroom. And then before you know it, another person will come again and say, oh, Uncle, Ngozi solved his own this way. He did not use your method. He did not use Emeka's method, but he used this other method. Did he get the answer? Yes. I said, okay, let me see. I check it. Oh, I said, yeah. This is another method also. This method is also good. So you discover that when you do this, you begin to discover that you will begin to see various ways of solving a particular problem, instead of them relying only on that method that you have taught them. And as a good teacher, you have to always let them to know that, look, that you are not an island of knowledge, that the technique in which you are using to teach them may be different from the one in which somebody else can use to teach. So as teacher, we try as much as possible not to make sure that our students are, there's a word they call it in education. Is it indoctrinated or something like that? So we try kind of to make them to stick to a particular method that we ourselves use. But we let them to know, look, there are other ways you must teach them. So when the students like, oh, I used a method and my teacher accepted it, that student begin to feel, comfortable, begin to feel relaxed. And when they begin to feel relaxed, their confidence begins to come in. But when they bring this, you rebuff, they bring this, you shout, they bring this, you give them zero, you are just killing their morale. These are the things causing phobia for students, okay? Then also give them time to come up with solution. Sometimes when you give them classwork, don't try as much as possible to rush them. Give them time to understand it. They cannot be as fast as you because you as a math teacher, you are already a master. So you are going to give them time, especially when you have just finished teaching a new topic and giving them a fresh classwork. Just give them time for them to be able to, to figure out some certain things and then bring their solution. Don't just begin to try to rush them and to rush them and to rush them. Timing is very important. Timing is very, very important. So always give them time. So that's this. So inspire their confidence. There are so many of them who lack confidence. Please inspire them. I always give them stories about myself. I always tell them how I wanted to study accounting in the university, and I ended up studying mathematics, and how because of my poor background in mathematics, I was really, dealt with by mathematics in university, So because I did not do further mathematics, so I actually struggled almost throughout my days in university. But it was when I got to my final year that I now began to, understand some certain concepts in further maths, which now helped me. So my experiences, I try as much as possible to pour out my experiences to them, to let them know, look, if you actually want to be good in mathematics, try as much as possible to embrace both of them, both the mathematics and the further mathematics aspect, because it helps, especially for those of them who want to go into sciences and engineering. Mathematics and further mathematics is very, very important. In fact, those of them who have knowledge of further maths will always be at an edge towards them, towards the ones who just studied mathematics when they get to the university. So I always tell them this, I share my stories to them, and I inspire them, and it helps them a lot. So when you do this, you will actually build up, their confidence towards mathematics. Then again, the students that we are teaching recently, they are not like us. Those of us who schooled in the 90s, they are not like us. These ones, they are the digital natives. I may be wrong, but based on my observation, I'm thinking that their attention span is not like the ones that we had during our time. During our time, those of us who schooled in the 80s and 90s and 70s and 60s, I think these ones, their attention span is very, very short and very, very snappy. So we as educators, we are also supposed to align ourselves to teaching them again as well. So one of the things we are going to do as educators is to try as much as possible to embrace technology in teaching them. Sometimes when you come to the class and you're just teaching maths, orally, without anything, these students, they want to see something, they want to perceive, they want to feel, they want to touch, they want to hear. So using technology is very important. Either you use laptop, a projector, you show them images, you show them games, all these things.
Ishmael, thank you. I would like to not leave Mr. Miracle out. Maybe he can build on the use of technology in teaching mathematics. Thank you very much. You've given us some wonderful, wonderful points. It's very interesting, but since we have two hosts, I didn't want him to feel left out. I really enjoyed the point about the mindset, the building a good relationship, hands-on experiences, getting to know your pupils. It's really, really, we've heard some fantastic points, but I also want to hear from Mr. Miracle, especially in terms of technology. How can technology aid in the teaching of mathematics? Mr. Miracle, please. You're mute, unmute yourself.
Thank you. I'm trying to see if this works.
Yes, we can hear you, but your volume is a bit low.
Okay. Just let me know if you see my screen.
Okay, you're sharing a screen. Okay, yeah. Fantastic.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
Yeah, let me move to. Okay. So just to kind of recap the some of the things said by Ishmael earlier. One, talking about teaching practices that can be used to make the subject more approachable. I've listed like 6 points here. The first is to start with the basics, use real life examples, encourage active learning, and then provide feedback, use technology, create positive learning environment. To go directly to the issue of technology teaching mathematics. One, technology means different things to different people. And if you're looking at technology, the first question you want to ask yourself is, what is my situation? Where am I located? What are the constraints? And then what are the affordances that will enable the use of technology in my math classroom? What you need to know is that when we talk technology, we are not only mentioning computers, because Blackboard and the textbook have been the greatest evolution in terms of education. The Blackboard allows you to present information to a large group of people at the same time. So when you put your notes out on the Blackboard, what you are doing is reaching out to a large group of people. That in itself is technology. That is the technology you have available. There are limitations to that kind of technology because it's a 2D environment, and then the most you can do with it is to share information that are available or that you can share in a 2D format. So for me as a math teacher, I'm asking myself the concept I'm teaching, what are the 2D models to present that information that it will consume? I also mentioned the issue of textbooks. Textbooks by virtue of the introduction of printing press, also was one of the huge technologies that has aided education or expanding the route of education. Now, textbooks over the years has evolved. Today, we can talk about PDFs, we can talk about worksheets. If your circumstances can afford the use of worksheets, then your technology is to use worksheets as an example. Now, for those of us who are blessed to have digital devices, then we'll now be talking about what are the softwares that I can use to show the 1,000 ways in which you can draw, say, for example, an isosceles triangle. When you use the Blackboard, the only 2 ways you can draw an isosceles triangle is by the straight edge and then the compass, right? And then the Blackboard that you have in front of you. But when you use mathematical softwares, then you can draw the isosceles triangle in 1,000 ways, okay? There are examples like Desmos, GeoGebra, Phantom, Tinkerplot, several of those mathematical software that are out there that are helping explain the mathematical concepts. Now, as I'm aware, a lot of the teacher education programs do not include integration of technology in teaching mathematics. We learn technology as a separate entity. We go to learn about the computer, the keyboard, and then Word, Excel. None of it in our teacher education programs. This is not a case of East Africa. No, I've been to school in the US, and then I'm now completing my PhD here in the UK. It's the same situation. None of them is integrating technology specifically to teach mathematics. So we as teachers would have to first learn the technology that we need to know about and how those technologies advance the teaching of mathematics. And if you were to use technology to teach mathematics, what you would be thinking about is what mathematics is going to be taught through the technology. What technology should I use? And pedagogy should I use to bring together the technology and the math in such a manner that my students can benefit from understanding it. Now, some technologies are teacher-centered, some technologies are student-centered. You have to make the decision between the pedagogy, whether you want it to be teacher-led or you want it to be hands-on, where the students themselves will have to explore the environment. Depending on what technology you are using, some could start with what we call the first principles, which means they have to design their own environment to even use the technology. But the good thing is that technology is so far advanced, digital technology, that we do not need everybody to learn how to code to use the technologies these days. It's just a button, a click of buttons, and then they could explore the mathematics and the learning that they need to, or the concept they need to understand from the use of technology, or else the technology will just become a play tool, which doesn't necessarily aid understanding, but will rather just become procedural, methodological, in the sense that people would use them without understanding how the answer they arrive at was attained. And that is the part you want to avoid when you use technology, that it doesn't become a black box. You put in something from the open end, then at the back end you have an answer. What happened within the processes that technology included. So those are the things I want to share. I would share in the chat the explanations regarding, like I mentioned, start with the basic. So before jumping into complex mathematical concepts, you need to establish the foundation for learning math. And the foundation talks about arithmetics, fractions, decimals, and percentages. It is only when students master this concept, then they can go on to understand the complex mathematics you talk about. Until such fundamentals are established, it's just so difficult to conceive other aspects of math. I think I've mentioned somewhere, talking with Ishmael, that the basics of all mathematics is how many. And the question of how many led to counting, and counting led to arithmetic. So in answering the question of how many, you have to count. So for example, how many are in the session? So I have to count 1, 2, 3, then I realize there are 55 people in the room. Now, if one person drops out of the call, then you are moving to arithmetic subtraction, right? Then if you are 54 now and one person comes to add on, then we are moving into what? Addition. So those are the things they need to understand to be able to move arithmetic and then move to algebra, which I've always maintained is just a general form of arithmetic. Then you move on to the areas of geometry, calculus, trigonometry, mechanics, statistics, probability, and all the math that there are that we do. I would sort of pause here and I'll put the notes in the chat for those of our colleagues who, for internet connection activity, are not able to get the speech very clear, might read the text from the chat. So maybe Auntie Fatima, I'll pause there and then hand over to you. If there are questions we need to answer, we can go on those questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Miracle. Thank you for sharing your experience with us about teaching mathematics. Very similar to what Ishmael was saying. So we have learned a lot about what mathematics is, what it's all about, how it can be taught, how we need to build relationship with our pupils, and all that. So and I'm sure we have so many parents, mathematics teachers in the audience that have questions to ask on how they can help their pupils or their children improve in mathematics. So now I'm going to open the floor for our question and answer session. You can put up your hand or unmute yourself. If you're not asking a question, please remain muted so that we can listen to the questions. You can direct your question either to Ishmael or Miracle. So it's a question and answer session now. Is there anybody who
good evening, ma'am. I have a question, ma'am.
Yes, you have a question, Semao.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Semao.
Thank you very much for organizing this very, very important session, ma'am. In fact, this training is actually for me. I'm one of the most, I'm a learner when it comes to math teaching. I have some questions, like my questions are in twofold, ma'am. The first one, first of all, I have a student in my school who actually have this math phobia. He has phobia in mathematics. And the challenge is this. The challenge is this, that this boy actually in class, I actually have adopted all sort of training tactics for him. He actually is coming up, he will work very actively in class, he will solve questions beautifully in class. But because the parents have to make him understand that mathematics is not a problem, it's not a yardstick to life. By the time he gets home and come back the following day, everything you teach him that the boy has practiced, even the work I give him, will have done it. If you ask him something or in our assessment exam or test, the boy will now wumble and fumble again. You don't start wondering what's the problem, because he actually he has done the work in the class, he solved the question perfectly, he took it home, bring it back and solve it again. But in the exam or test, he will fail woefully. I'm tired, I'm kind of confused on how to handle this kind of boy. Then my last question is this: can they give us this the website or the software, mathematical software that can use to enhance our teaching in class, please? Just the software, the list of software or the websites that can help us in enhancing our mathematical teaching in class. Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Semao. So you had two questions. Your first question, if I understand you very well, child that seems to understand well in class, do his assignments and everything, but when it comes to exams, he fails to achieve good scores in his exams. And then you also wanted advice on mathematical software or websites that can aid in the teaching of mathematics. I don't know who wants to take this. Please, if you're not talking, mute yourselves. Miracle or Ishmael, do you want to answer?
Okay. The first question around a child who performs in class and then he comes back the next day and seems to have forgotten everything. It's interesting. I would say when I started my teaching career, I experienced the same thing about this boy in class who would, he had difficulties, but once he's with you, the teacher, he understands what needs to be done and follows through the process. And you give him assignments, he goes home and comes back the next day and seems everything's been forgotten. Now, I think we mentioned in our opening statement, what are the causes or some of the causes of math phobia. We did mention lack of confidence and then bad experience in the past and also difficulty in understanding. With such a child, the issue is he's not so confident in himself without the teacher. He needs the teacher, the person of the teacher, to say, back him up to do the assignment. Hence, in the class, you would realize he's doing well because he's drawing experience or confidence from the teacher and then the teacher's guidance. Oh, you can do it. This is how you need to do it. But when he leaves the classroom, he doesn't have that same support system to enable him continue the practice. So he goes home and then he feels like, oh, I can't do this thing without my teacher. So he comes back and he's forgotten everything that's been done the day before. So the teacher will have to go over again. Such a child will need confidence building. So the teacher would have to move from just teaching the math to confidence building. The child will have to believe that I can do this thing on my own. And again, when you give out assignments, please make the assignment graduated. You need to start from a scale of 1. When it does that, you go to 2, it does that, it goes to 3. What this helps you, the teacher, understand is this. You can determine that if he's able to complete step 1, complete step 2, and he's finding difficulty at step 3, that is where you need to concentrate. So you don't have to go back teaching all the topic again. So when you teach the concept of, say, addition, for example, you need to start from addition as grouping, and then maybe move on to addition as counting on strategy. Is he able to do addition as grouping? If he's able to do that one, say, good. Now we move on to addition as counting on strategy. Okay. Now, if he faces challenge at that addition as counting on strategy, then that is where you need to put much of your efforts. Instead of going back and then teaching the whole of addition again, he wouldn't be able to tell where his struggle is. So you need to start giving graduated assignments and then use that graduated assignment to determine where exactly is his difficulty. And this graduated assignment, you have to be very conscious how you set it. You have to set the task such that everybody in the classroom can do first level 1. Some can do level 2, and a few can do level 3. So when he takes this home, he's happy to complete level 1 because he knows, oh, after all, I can also get 1 out of 10. I can get 1 out of 2. I can get 1 out of 3 situation. You start building confidence that way. Then eventually he'll go into it and then do those on his own. So that's my suggestion regarding the child who comes to school, does well, and then goes home, forgets everything, come back the next day with nothing. On the issue of technology resources, yes, I will put some of them in the chat, the links in the chat that you can resource from. Top of them, Desmos is one, GeoGebra is one that you can easily get, and these are all free resources. I would put some of the links in the chat so that everyone can access those as well. Thank you. Auntie Fatima, you're muted. Auntie Fatima, you're muted.
Please, you are muted.
You'd have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yes, I was just asking if Ishmael had anything to add.
Yes, I do.
About the questions that Semao asked. Yes.
Yes, I do have a contribution to add to that. Yeah, okay. So my contribution is this. I think what I can view from that particular student who comes the next day and forgets and go to exam and fails the exam is I can view the person as not being able to understand the concept fully, because there are 4 stages for a student to actually be able to grab a particular concept fully. And one of them, the first one is accuracy, the second one is efficiency, and then we have flexibility and fluency. Now, sometimes, what most teachers do is that they focus mainly on the accuracy. They give them formulas, they teach them about formulas, about rules, on guiding rules on how to solve a particular problem, without really teaching them the concept, the how and the why of a particular course and topic. They only focus on the what, and that is why most of them, they get to the examination hall, or they give them a particular problem which is totally different from what they have been taught in class. They are being thrown off balance because they are seeing something strange. But once that particular child is able to understand all the concepts, from accuracy to efficiency to flexibility and fluency, discover that that child, no matter how the particular problem is being twisted, that particular child or that student will be able to find his way out of that problem. So the teacher should watch his instruction. How does he teach? Does he just teach and give that particular student steps on how to solve a particular problem? Or does he make that student to understand why we are solving this thing in this particular way? How are we solving this thing in this particular way? Once you are able to switch from that rules and procedures to the why and the how for the students, I think it will help the students a lot. So this is my contribution.
Thank you very much, Ishmael. Okay, let's move on. Vincent Quino.
Good evening.
Vincent, your hand is up. Good evening.
Thank you,
Please
madam.
go ahead with your question.
I wanted to add a bit to what they are saying. I'm also a mathematics teacher, and one thing that's the students, they have in mind that math is difficult. So one of the things I used to get them to know that math is not difficult is that we have only four operations in doing mathematics. But when it comes to English, we have so many English and types of English. So that is one thing. And I let them know that every step you go on in mathematics, you are either applying either one of the 4 or 2. If not any, you are applying a principle or applying a concept. Example, when you talk of factorization, you are to bring out the common factor. Here, you are not doing any of the operations, but it's a principle that you are applying. So that has made my students know that. So in working with mathematics with them, every step we go, I ask them, which operation are we applying? They will say addition, either subtraction or division. So with that, they get to know that math is in itself is not difficult because we are using only 4 operations. With that done, when Ishmael was talking about how to mark their exercise, I have a large class. So what I mostly do is when I give them the exercise, I give it to them. We solve it together, mark it together with them most at times. 1, we are marking, as he said, you get different methods of solving. 2, I'm reteaching whatever I taught. 3, they are doing their corrections. So in all this, it makes the students be up and doing. That is a little bit I want to add. Thank you, Ma.
Okay, thank you very much, Vincent. Okay, Gitura, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you so much for this meeting. It's really informative. I have 2 questions. One is similar. My student is similar to that one, but I thought he doesn't understand even from level 1 in maths. So I tried even setting the easiest exam like 10 plus 5, he doesn't understand, and he's in grade 9. All others are understanding. So I tried to bring it to like differentiated learning, where I give him easier questions to start with, and then he will catch up with this rest of the class. So he thinks I am trying to isolate him. So he starts doing what he has heard that others are doing, and then asks, what have you gotten in this number? What have you gotten in this? And then when I go to Mark and ask him, how did you get? He doesn't understand. So I called him to talk to him, but I realized he doesn't even have a career in mind. He doesn't even know why he's in school. He just comes to school because the parents have told him to come. So I'm really having a problem with that student because he just wastes time during maths. I try to befriend him, but whenever I'm his friend, he walks around class, doesn't do work. So what do I do about this student? And then number 2, does giving a lot of work to students make them develop a negative attitude? Or yes, only those 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I kind of just want to add my own little bit before I hand over to Miracle and Ishmael. I think there are lots of underlying issues with this particular child, you know. I think there are other psychological issues from what you've said, but let's hear from Miracle and Ishmael. Miracle, please unmute. Did you hear the questions? Or Ishmael wants to go first. Ishmael, you can go first.
Ishmael should take. I'm trying to get a copy of a graduated text to share. Whilst Ishmael is doing that, let me pick that.
Okay, let Ishmael start talking. Yeah, Ishmael, the question.
Yeah.
From Bookie.
For the first question, I think just like you said, I think there are so many underlying issues concerning that child. But let me just focus on the math aspect for the particular child. I think that child is having problem with, let's say, with foundational learning. You know, there is what we call learning gaps. I think that is what that child is having. If that child is in, I don't know the particular grade now, is it grade 7 or what? Or grade 6?
Grade 9.
Grade 9, good. So there are some gaps either in the previous grades, maybe grade 2, grade 3, grades. There are some topics that he's not grounded with. Understand? So that's if he's able to fill up those gaps, then that grade 9 will become a very easy and fluent grade for him, stage for him to pass through. But those gaps are what is affecting him. So all you have to do now as a teacher is to in fact, you can even assess him while you are teaching to know those areas. Like there are some students that I teach, and especially those of them that are in my class. If I'm teaching them and I discover that, look, common indices you cannot solve, it means that this particular child is having problem with what? With SS1 maths. Oh, common polygon, you cannot solve this. It tells me that, oh, that this particular child is having gap with JS2 or JS3. Common bearing, just understand. So when you look at those simple topics, those simple courses that he's supposed to have done or that he's supposed to have known in all those lower grades, that will let you to know that these are the areas that he's having problem with. And then the child mindset also have to be worked on. You know, like Auntie Fatima said, maybe it has to do with some other psychological aspects. So the guardian or the parents of the child have to be involved as well. This will also help us. In fact, it has to be a collective team. The parents, the teacher, and all stakeholders should be involved concerning this. So that's that. Then your second question is, if given too much assignment or given too much work, whether it is what? Whether, please, can you just complete for me? Given too much.
Bokeh, what did you say? Can you repeat your question?
Does giving a lot of work for practice make students to create a negative attitude?
Okay. Okay, no. It doesn't. only for those of them who are already having phobia. Those are the ones that are that I can say, okay, that they'll begin to, create more negative attitudes for themselves. But there are some of them that, in fact, like my student, I have a WhatsApp group for them. After the class, we go to once we get home, if I'm busy, I just come to the WhatsApp chat, and then we begin to discuss maths. And then you see some of them asking me for more questions, for more things for them to practice. Understand? So it has to do with the mindset. It has to do with the peculiarity or the personality of that student. But in a general note, it does not really hamper any student from anywhere. Giving them more questions, most of them see them as a challenge for them to, to work more and become better. So that's my own. It does not affect them negatively. Rather, it's very good for them.
Okay, thank you, Ishmael. I think Ishmael has dealt with that. If a child is enjoying the subject, they love the subject, they want to do more, it shouldn't be seen as a negative thing. Right, Dorcas has a question. I saw your hand up, Dorcas.
Yes, ma. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello, can you hear me? Good evening, everybody.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, yeah, Dorcas, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Yes, we can hear you, Dorcas.
Hello?
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Maybe there's something wrong with your connection. Dorcas, go ahead with your question, please.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Dorcas. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello?
Hello, Dorcas, please go ahead.
Okay, ma. It's not a question now. I just want to add to what Mr. Ishmael said. Although I'm not a mathematician, but I discovered something. There is learning disability that do affect students.
Maybe dyscalculia.
Yeah, dyscalculia, exactly, dyscalculia. So at least as a mathematician, you need to know your students' learning disability. If that child is having a dyscalculia, I don't think like there's a way, as in you have to devise another method or another means of teaching that child. So once the child have a dyscalculia problem, the teacher have to be very patient with that child.
Yes.
It's not really a phobia, but it's a learning disability.
A learning disability. Yes. That's why I said the way she described that child, I suspect there is something wrong, but they need to be tested by a psychologist, by an educational psychologist. Maybe there's some other issues, because it sounded very strange. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your contribution, Dorcas.
Hello, I'm not hearing you. Hello, I'm not hearing you.
Everybody else can hear me, only you. Anyway, thank you, Dorcas. So, yes, we'll have one more question, and then I'll hand over to Miracle. Mohammed Sodanji, your hand is up. Mohammed Sodanji, your hand is up. Did you want to ask a question? Mohammed, you can go ahead with your question. Okay, we can't hear you, Mohammed Sodanji. So we'll go on to Miracle. You have a slide that you're showing, I can see. Assessment task. Miracle.
Yes. Yeah. So earlier when I talked about graduating the assessment task to determine the difficulty level or where the child is unable to progress. Now, this is an example of what I was talking about. Here, I'm looking at a task which is counting up to 1,000. You realize I put in numbers here, 3 numbers, and I asked, you give them a certain time to complete. If you look at the right of that, you see 0, 1, 2, and then I've given description, read 0 or 1 number correctly. 1, if the child reads 2 numbers correctly. 2, read 3 numbers correctly. This is how you score that kind of task for the child. So if the child is not able to read any number from here or read just 1 number from the task here, his score is 0. So I'm not going to score the child on all 3 and say he's got it correct. He needs to complete all 3 tasks to demonstrate that he understands the number and he knows what these numbers are. Then when I move on from there, from counting, I go on to representing numbers to 1,000 in equivalent ways. So you realize that this test is graduated for the child. A child who is unable to complete the first task, which is counting up to 1,000, obviously cannot represent numbers up to 1,000 in equivalent ways. Okay, so this is the kind of task you do to be able to determine where the kids are with their learning. So you wouldn't just finish all of your lesson and said he doesn't get it. Which part of it that he didn't get? So you need to also graduate your lessons such that you can track the students' learning as they move along. Now, when you move from representing numbers, the next task here is identifying missing numbers on a number line. These tasks are such that if the child does task 1, the potential to do task 2 is there. And if you get to task 2 and can't complete any of task 2, it means that's where the difficulty is. It's about representing numbers. Now, unfortunately, when we take our syllabus are not presented in this format. But that is where the ingenuity or the teacher agency comes to the fore. Earlier on, I mentioned something like the diploma disease. We get our certificate and we all stop learning. Okay. When you want to avert that, you as a teacher would have to continue learning. And it's through your continuous learning that you discover new things, new ways to assess your students and engage your students. Most of the issues we are talking about now are also because beyond our teacher training program, we haven't dedicated ourselves to learning what are the children's learning disabilities or difficulties that I'm going to encounter and learn about those learning difficulties. Most of the time, we enter the classroom and we juggle things up in the sense that you approach to teach the concept of saying sets in our classroom, right? Then you find yourself that you do not have what it takes to know about your students and then the ability to complete the task on sets. We only go in to teach the way we have been taught. And it's only a learning teacher who would differ from the way they have been taught to teach in a way that makes meaning and then is practical in their context. So most of the things we'll be talking about are not things you will find in any textbooks. They are things you develop as a result of continuous practice and continuous learning about the content, the pedagogy needed to transfer the knowledge to your students. So yeah, this is an example of what I shared. I'll see if I can share this also in the chat. So some of you can take a cue from how to even set tasks in graduated format and how you score that kind of tasks in engaging your students going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miracle. Well, I am happy that we here on this platform, as 1 Million Teacher Black Belts, we are involved in continuous learning. We do not stop learning. We have also learned about different learning styles. We've also learned about special needs education. So we are a teacher training organization that believes in continuous professional development. So none of the teachers here have stopped learning. And that is why we invite people like you on a weekly basis so that we continue to learn. We have meetings nearly every week. We have pedagogy modules about different aspects of teaching pedagogy. And we are an organization that believes in improving the quality of teaching and learning. And that's what we are all about. So I'm very happy that we are part of this organization of teachers that are involved in continuous learning. And we know about how to understand the different learning styles and the different disabilities that children might suffer from. Thank you very much. Okay, we have gone even 10 minutes over time. That's because we were enjoying the session so much. It has been a very informative session. I just want to quickly go through the chat if there's anything else or any other questions, and then we'll call it a day. Thank you. I've seen that Miracule has added the websites for mathematics. So it's on the chat. You can go to the chat and look at it. So let me see. Progressive. What does it say? Come in. That is the principle of teaching from simplex to complex. Okay, thank you, Hamed Moshood. Very revealing session. Thanks, Ishmael. Somebody was talking about dyscalculia. I will involve the parents and seek out for help. Once the student understood the foundation, no matter the environment, they will excel. We tend to teach abstract maths, and children cannot apply it to real life, okay, situations. Children should have hands-on lessons and plenty of practice. Confidence building is a must. Practice brings about perfection. Also provide accommodation for struggling students and begin to withdraw support to boost confidence. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mariam Bello, for your contribution. So a wonderful session. We have learned so much. And I hope our children will no longer suffer from phobia after all these information that we've learned today. Book widgets, www.bookwidgets. Thank you for this session. I suggest other subjects like economics. Well, I don't know if we're going to be taking it subject by subject, but I just know that maths is a major one. And even I have a personal experience of going through maths phobia. And until I started teacher training, that's when I understood how to teach maths better. So, and like I said, we are part of 1 million teachers. We are black belts. We have the opportunity to improve the way maths is taught. Ishmael, do you have any last words before we call it a day?
Yeah, I just want to say that one thing we have to look at as teachers is, especially those of us who teach maths, is giving students time. You know, the truth of the matter is that students are different. You know, their mode of learning differs. So there are some persons, or there are some students who can assimilate things faster, while there are some who it will just take them some time for them to be able to grab some certain things. So as teachers, we should learn to be patient, to give them some time for them to get that self-awareness, and then you see them booming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Miracle, last word before we call it. Mr. Miracle?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
My last word is to encourage the teachers who are involved in this activity. I mean, you can't have a platform like this and not improve. I believe strongly, as someone who has been involved in teacher professional development in the last 15 years, that this is the surest way as a teacher to demonstrate your skills, to show your skill set and mastery, and then also connect with others and learn. And I'm happy to see that they are not teachers from just one geographical location. Teachers are coming from different locations. What it means is that you can cross-share knowledge and see what works in one context and how does that help you improve in your context. And then thanks for the questions that came out, because in reality, yes, these things abound. And it's through platforms like this that you can get to hear about other people's experiences and how they've been able to overcome the situation and apply the same to your context for students learning improvement. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and hope to engage with you going forward on how best we can elevate the learning attainment on the continent of Africa and in our schools as well.
Thank you so much, Miracle. I'm sure this will be the first of many more conversations that we're going to have. There's so many topics that we would love to have you come and discuss. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ishmael, for joining us this evening. Thank you, everyone. Yes, it's being recorded, and we will share we'll share the session on our WhatsApp group. Also, Mr. Miracle, if you can share the I will talk to Mr. Smile about getting the slides that you shared.
Okay.
If we can share that as well. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening, and we'll see you soon again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Well done. Thank you.